So right here, you see my current dilemma, which is I got to get my butt in here underneath this truck and make some cardboard templates so I can mount the bottom of this shock. So basically, I just got to come off the inside of the axle right here and somewhere right in here and get her tacked in place. I don't know how much of this I'm going to be able to video because, hell, I'm barely even fitting under here right now to video this little bit, let alone to get under here when I'm actually still working. So I'm going to start out by making my cardboard templates, and I'm going to go ahead and just do it off camera. So then we'll come back when we are sitting up on the table, and I can kind of show you what I come up with. All right, so I tried and tried and tried. I've been back and forth underneath that truck, I don't know, 7, 8, 10, 12 times, a bunch. And there's just not a good angle that I can get where I can show you what I'm trying to do. Unfortunately, it's just, there's a lot of crap right there and it's very congested. And the time I get my hands and arms up in there, you can't see anything but my hairy arms, and I don't think anybody really cares to see that. But here's what I got. This is our shock bracket right here. So you can see I went ahead and I got, this is a round part where it will fit the axle. It extends down like this. The shock comes in at an angle right here. So I had to kind of angle the bottom of it here so it will clear the body of the shock. Obviously we got our bolt hole there. It extends down really nice. So I got 2 of these and I kind of went ahead and stuck the bolt through them, stuck them up there. Kind of test fit everything. Everything looks good enough that I'm gonna I've got these transferred on the steel, so we got to cut them out and do a little grinding and do a little drilling and get it ready to go. So got to cut 4 of these jokers out and get them all cleaned up and ready to go. So let's get to cutting.
Perfect. Perfect.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is like what we had to talk about not too long ago, about how you can spend an immense amount of time just working on a couple of stupid little brackets. I mean, at the end of the day, that's what we wound up with. It's not super sophisticated, it's not CNC cut, it's not perfect, but it took me quite a while to make 4 of them. So unfortunately, like I said before, there's no way that I can get underneath the vehicle and get at a good angle where you can actually see me put these things on and get them in place. So I am going to go ahead and I'm going to stick them in there. I'm going to go and get them tacked in place off camera, just because it seems kind of pointless to make you wait at this point. So I'm going to go ahead and get that done, and we'll get them tacked in place. And then when we come back, we'll be ready to start working on our bump stop mounts, which I got a pretty cool little idea. I'm kind of excited to show you about that. So I'm going to go wrap these up right quick, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about some bump stops. Okay, so putting the shocks on did not go as planned because, well, whatever does. So I got under there and put my bolt through both my bracket, through my shock to the other bracket, and I go to roll it up in place, and the side of the sway bar mount, the part that mounts the axle, is kind of in the way. It's a little bit wider, just the way it all fits. One side would not sit up there where it was supposed to be. Now the other side actually butts up directly against the main chunk, the housing itself. So I was able to I just put one bolt through it. I let the other bracket flip down, put the nut and the washer on it, tighten it all up. That way it was all kind of still square to the shock. Set it up in there, held it nice and square to the housing, like that, I guess. And went ahead and put a tack on it, so it's all held in place. Both of them are held in place good. So basically what I'll do is once I get the axle back out of there and I'm ready to weld it all up, I'll take and I'll make a piece of wood, like a wood block, and I'll drill it out so I can bolt it in between the two, and it has the right thickness. That way, it doesn't, come together, make it a pain in the butt for me to get my shock in and out once it's welded. Sometimes they'll pull together. So I cut my piece of wood and I'll bolt it in there, and then I'll be able to adapt the other mount where it'll just tie into that sway bar mount, which is not a big deal. It's kind of like that from the factory anyway. So I'll deal with that then. But for now, the shocks are bolted on there. It is all in place, and I'm thrilled about that, as you could just imagine. So next up, these funky things. Now, you remember these? These used to be riveted on the frame here and bolted through the frame there. Yes, I could have bought some new ones, but I mean, there's really nothing wrong with these. And you see you get this big steel bracket, and then this bump stop actually bolts to it. Now I have no intention of using this bracket. It looks like the bump stop bolts to it, so as long as I can get it unbolted right here, I'm going to use it. So let's see. I'm not going to get it with that impact because that battery is almost dead. So let me get a 15mm socket from my 3/8 drive. All right, let's try this again. That shut the shit out of my hand. Hey, it came off though. Very nice. You see, there's not much to this. I'm going to just chunk these mounts because it would be cool if I could use them, but I'm not going to. That was a lot easier. So basically, dadgum. All right. A little dirt holding it in there. All right, so what I did on the first one was I let that slide out of there and let that little nipple slide out of the mount, which shook the crap out of my hand, which made it hard to get off. That's why I noticed that when I separated it just now, so I held this one together. That way it still go together. So we got 2 usable bump stops. So let's get those 2 guys out of the way. Now basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a piece of that, whatever it was, 3x6 rectangular tube that I have. And I'm just going to try to use that. I got a piece over here. So this is how I'm imagining this going down. I'm going to measure the distance, because right now it is at full bump. I'm going to measure the distance from the bottom of the C-notch to the top of the axle tube. Okay? So that would be my total height. Now I'm actually going to build this to be, I'm thinking half to probably 3/4 of an inch. Yeah, 3/4 of an inch taller than full bump, because obviously as the way the truck sits down on it, I'm imagining it's going to squish into this thing a little bit, especially over time. It would certainly wear into it. So I'm going to measure that, and then we'll come to this guy right here, and we'll basically, I will, this thing, as you can see, is not very wide. So I'll probably just kind of, do something like this, about that wide. I'll be able to drill the holes in the center of it. Then I'll come down like from the top here. Let's just say I needed 3 inches and this was 3 total. Then I'll just cut basically that 4-inch round on either side. That way it just sits right down on top of the axle, and we'll tack it in place. All that sounded really easy and really fast. Let's see how that's going to work out. So I'm going to run over here and I'm going to measure this, measure that distance right quick, and then we'll come back and kind of start laying it out on this guy. Actually, this thing is really nasty and dirty looking. I could probably stand to clean it off. I don't really want to, because it always makes everything really dusty in here, and I need to wash my donk anyway. So I guess I'm gonna go clean this thing off and take those measurements, and then we'll come back when I'll be probably much dirtier and more aggravated. Woohoo! Okie dokie, back to the drawing board. So, got our C-notch drawn, got our axle drawn right here, got our bump stop mount right here. Hopefully this kind of gives you a little better picture than what my probably very rudimental explanation was a little while ago. So what we got, our bump stop is 2 1/8 of an inch tall. Our total distance between the bottom of the notch and the top of the axle tube. Now, not the bottom of the notch, the top of the axle tube is 3 5/8. Now, our bump stop is 2 1/8 of an inch. So that leaves us with 1.5 inch total height from the top of the axle to the bottom of the bump stop. Now remember I said we're going to add 3/4 of an inch for squish. Probably not going to squish quite that much, but just like the front, I would much rather have the weight of the truck riding on that bump stop on top of the axle than just sitting on my bags. So we got 1.5 inches plus 3/4 gives us 2 1/4 of an inch. So basically 2 1/4 from the bottom of the bump stop to right here, the top of the axle tube. So we got to cut that cope for the top of the axle tube right there. Now I went ahead, I measured that big chunk of steel that I got, and I cut a 4-inch piece out of it. That's basically the width of the axle tube. That way it should sit down on there. Should be supported really good. That's also wider than the bump stop, but whatever. A little more steel, never hurt anything, right? What is it? This is the thing. Weight is a sign of durability. I like that. So, jump over to the table and I'll show you, take some measurements, get this thing drawn out. Okie dokie. So we got this guy, and I got some marks on there I could probably stand and get off. Let's see, what do we got here? I got nearly busted can of carburetor cleaner. Ooh, yeah, that broke that up nice. Note to self, carbon choke cleaner and throttle body cleaner cleans off Sharpie. Very nice. Yeah, that worked out good. Still a horribly nasty piece of metal, but you get it. All right, so here we are. Got our piece cut, 4 inches across. Let's see. Man, it does not look like it's even. It's off by a shade. I can live with it. It'll be fine. All right, so we're gonna mark our center. Yeah, right here. All right, so now I got my center line found. So what I need to do now is I need to come down 2 1/4 inches from this top edge. So that's going to be 1, 2 1/4, right yonder. Need to do the same from this side. Ugh, not like those readings. So it's like this side is in 8ths and then this side is like in 16ths. Well, I mean, I can still do it, but it's easier to do it this way because the way I've got it set 2 1/4. All right, so like I said, this is the very bottom of, or I guess the top of our mark. And then here's our center line. So let's mark that guy right there. There. Now, got my trusty roll of tape here, which actually has been used up to just the right amount to where it is right on 4 inches. So basically I'm going to stick it up here and I'm going to hold it where it's nice and flush on either side and right on my line. And we'll go on and mark it. So that gives us the actual cope of our axle. Now I'm hoping to use this piece to make both of them. Now obviously I don't need it to wrap all the way around. I don't got to have that much support. And by the time I get down to this last 1/2 inch anyway, the weld is just going to try to melt away anyhow. So here's my plan. I am going to set this up so that I can get both pieces out of it. And I'm going to show you how. That kind of set a little bit. So there you go. So you can see right there how it can work. So now, basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by drawing me a straight line. Yeah. Right where these guys intersect from my tape roll. You see that? Right where they intersect. So looking at this thing top down now, I've cut off that last little bit where the weld would have kind of eaten it anyway. So essentially, I'm just getting rid of that chunk right there. So I got a good spot to weld to. So now, basically what I might do, I don't know, it'd probably be too much heat for this roll of tape. I could probably just freehand this and it'll just be what it'll be. So what I'll probably do is I'm gonna go over here, I'll get my cold saw and I'll just hack this thing all the way through. That way all I gotta do really is then just come back and trim up this center section with each one. And that should actually work out pretty nice because it will sit on top of that. Look, you see I already got this side marked. So then all I gotta do is drill it, put it on there, stick it on top of the axle, weld it in place on the center line, and we should be 100% good to go. So I'm actually gonna call it a night. I'm gonna go have some dinner. But when we come back, I'll probably be wearing a different shirt and we're gonna get the cold saw and cut this dude up. All right, so we got these guys. You see I kind of went over with a grinder and kind of knocked all the rust off of them. And we got our holes all drilled. Everything's good to go. So first step in putting these guys in, I can't put them in with the bags in the way because I can't see where everything is, and I can't get them in from the inside because the link arms are in the way. So first things first, I'm going to jack it up just enough to drop these jack stands down a notch or two so we can pull these airbags out so I can sit them in there from that side to slide them in from this side to mount them. Now I know, as long as I get it, you know, at minimum flush to the outside of the frame right here, I got no problem with it rubbing anything. So let's get this dude jacked up, get these bags on. Now, still got my center line marked on my axle right here. So I gotta mark my center line right here. Probably should have already done that already. Well, it would appear I need to let the axle down just a hair bit.
I don't give a fuck.
So I got it stuck under there. This side's making contact. That side, it's a little lower, but it's also probably because of how the jack is sitting right now. So now what I'm gonna do is, I got them sitting there just right, so I'm gonna jack it up. I'm actually gonna find me a piece of wood that I can stick right across the face of the C-notch right here, and then I'll bump the metal for the bracket right here. I'll kind of put that right against that piece of wood and bump it in there together. That way I know that all that is flush. So let me find something right quick. No, I got something around here somewhere. Maybe too much. Yep. This should work nicely. Oh yeah. Absolutely perfect. There we go. Sit on there real nice. That was way too easy. All right, well, let's jack it. So now the idea will be to jack it up until it's flush enough that it starts to almost lift the truck off of those jack stands, because then you kind of got some of the weight of the truck on it. Now granted, I'm going to put a heavy flatbed and stuff on the back of this thing, so it will compress these bump stops just a little bit more when we get to the final version of everything. But the hope is that I'm somewhere just a little bit taller than what the maximum compression of the bag is. Because remember, like I said, I don't want to be riding with the bag all the way down. I want it to where if I blow all 4 bags out, that it will sit on the bump stops and not on the bags. So let's jack it up and see what we get. There we go. Let's measure that up, see what we got. Dead on balls, 5 1/8 on each side. So I'm gonna go back, I'm gonna look real quick, and I'm gonna see what my maximum compressed was for the bags. I think it was 4 3/4, but I don't remember. I'm gonna have to go back and look. But right now we're sitting dead even at 5 1/8 per side, and I'm really happy with how that sits in there. I think it's gonna work really nice I can definitely get in there to weld all of it too, and weld the mount brackets and tie it all together. So as long as that measurement checks out, which I'm gonna go check out right now, I'm gonna see how that works out, then hopefully we can come back and tack this dude in place. If I do need to be any shorter, not a big deal. I'll just take the plasma cutter and cut out what little bit that I need to, or really I could probably just take a grinder, because it won't be much, if anything. Maybe, I don't remember. I might want to. I'm just gonna have to go back and look at it, and then we'll come back and see. So hang tight for a second. All right, so I went back and looked, and as luck would have it, I had it written on my board what the dimension was, and 5 1/8 will work out perfectly for what I'm trying to do. So we got everything's all stuck in place. So I'm gonna jump up in here and stick it with a couple of tacks and make sure we get it all held in there in place. I do have it jacked up right now. It's the bumps are sitting up in the notch right there, kind of holding themselves right in place where I want them. So we'll hit it with a couple of tacks right quick, lock them down. Okay, so that was pretty significant for one gigantic reason. That was the final piece that we needed to tack in place to be completely done with all the fabrication for the rear suspension. All the components are accounted for: our four-link, our bump stop, our sway bar, our shock mounts. Everything is ready to go for me to tear this thing down and do all the final welding on it. And boy, is that going to be a marathon of welding and probably some grinding and some cleanup, and not really looking forward to all that. But I am so excited to be to this phase of the project. Now, we are still going to do a little bit of bracing and kind of wrapping up on the front, that upper cross member up there. We'll do that once I get the axle and everything out from under here, and we get it back up on the table where we can start welding it. Probably go ahead and get it all welded in next. Then we'll come over here, we'll finish weld everything on the frame. Then we'll start boxing all that in. I'm gonna put some steel tubing through it, some like 1.5 to 2 inch tubing. That way still have an area to run wires and air lines or brake lines or anything like that through there. So we'll get to that here soon. But for now, we are 100% ready to tear this all back down and get this axle off from under here, get it up on the table, get ready to weld, and burn all this stuff in permanently. And man, I could not be happier with that right now. This has been such a long time coming. It's been a couple of months just since I made the video about, hey, I just got to start. I just got to get going. And I did that day, and I've kind of stayed after it ever since, and man, we accomplished a whole lot. So for those of you that have been watching and supporting and staying with me the whole way, thank you very much. Knowing that you're watching, believe it or not, actually helped motivate me some days. So hang in there, stay with me. We got a ton to go still. Well, we got a ton to go, but man, we've got a ton done. So we are definitely on the downside of the slope at this point. So let's get this axle out from under here.